All right. Every once in a while, I get so fed up with politics. I got to do a rant and just let steam off. I try not to, but I've hit the boiling point. And it's the gaslighting that the left is doing with Kamala Harris, making it sound like she's some great, groundbreaking candidate. She is the worst candidate to ever run for president ever.
Yeah, maybe I should rant too, Dave. Let me tell you what I'm frustrated about. You're up here talking about qualifications. She is the worst candidate ever to run. First of all, by what measure? She was so good at being district attorney in San Francisco that the state of California, the fifth largest economy in the world, said, hey, would you mind being our attorney general? And then she was so good at that they're like, hey, could you be our senator? One of two people in the biggest state in this country. Again, fifth largest economy in the world. They're like, hey, you were so good at your last two jobs. We want you to be our senator. And then she went to the Senate, and she was so effective in the Senate that Joe Biden chose her as his vice president. And the country said, yeah. And then she won an election on the ticket with Joe Biden to become vice president. So when you talk about qualifications, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But I do know this. You don't know anything about politics. Not one goddamn thing. You are up here talking about other people's qualifications when you don't understand any of this.
And what put this over the edge for me? Last week, I'm watching our campaign rally, and she's up there being like, we need to turn the page in America. It's time for a new way forward, and I'm your candidate for change, and they're hooting and hollering.
Oh no, we want something different?
It's time to turn the page.
And I see her at a rally today, and it's the same message again. Time to turn the page. We need a new generation of leadership.
Yeah, Dave, that's how rallies work. They say the same thing at every rally. Donald Trump does this, but you've never made a sensitive Sally video about Donald Trump saying the same thing over and over. These criticisms that you're lofting at her, you're not willing to loft those at the right. You're not willing to loft those at Donald Trump. Donald Trump's been campaigning for 9 years. He hasn't changed his fucking message in 9 years. He didn't get any of the shit done that he said he was going to get done his first term, and he's still saying the same shit 9 years later. But of course, Dave, you didn't notice that, did you?
Is the sitting vice president of the United States currently saying she's the candidate for change? Okay, fine. And by the way, she has to, because I think 90% of Americans, left or right, I mean, like the last 4 years under Biden, not great. Look at the world stage. Afghanistan was a disaster. The Middle East is basically in flames. You got Russia.
Dave, you could have done some homework instead of a rant, but you chose rant, so I'm going to do the homework for you. Afghanistan. Remember when Donald Trump was running for president in 2016, and he said, I'm going to get us out of Afghanistan, and he had 4 years to do it, and he didn't get shit done. In fact, he put a plan together, the very plan that Joe Biden and the generals wound up having to carry out, where he negotiated directly with ISIS and left the Afghanistan government out of it. 5 times Donald Trump said, I'm going to get us out of Afghanistan, and he didn't do it. He kept saying, I'll get us out by the summer. Didn't happen. I'll get us out by Halloween. Didn't happen. I'll get us out by Thanksgiving. Didn't happen. I'll get us out by Christmas. Didn't happen. I'll get us out before I leave office. Didn't fucking happen.
And on the homeland, inflation's out of control. People burning American flags in the street. The defund the police. Law and order doesn't even seem to matter anymore.
Just real quick, Dave. Trump was president during the defund the police and the riots. That happened during Trump's presidency. Now Joe Biden has to take the blame for the things that happened not only during his own presidency, but also during the presidency previously. Is that what you're saying?
You got the border, immigration. There's so many issues.
In 2019, when Donald Trump was still president, did you know, Dave, that we had a 500% increase in people showing up at our border? In fact, it was so crazy that Donald Trump was running on migrant caravans, again, while he was president. Like, he was literally blaming Democrats for the thing that happened while he was president. He's like, they want these migrant caravans. And you know why we had so many people at the border? It's because Donald Trump pulled funding from countries all around the world. You know the funding that we give to smaller countries to help them build their infrastructure, their education, their government, so that they don't show up at our border so they can build their country up? Yeah, he pulled that funding, and then they showed up at our border. In fact, in Venezuela, he tried a coup, and the coup failed. So because the coup failed, because Donald Trump's a fucking idiot, he said, all right, I'm not buying your oil anymore. And oil is 90% of the Venezuelan economy, and we buy half of it. That means half of their economy almost was ripped out from under them. And so many of them were displaced and came to America that on his way out the door, Donald Trump wrote this executive order basically saying, yeah, we fucked up. Don't send these Venezuelans back because this is on us. And all of that continued after COVID. All the destabilization that Trump caused before COVID was magnified after COVID because those countries got hit just like everybody else did, and they didn't have any money. So we had people showing up at our border. Here's a little bit of knowledge that you don't have. You know who can change the laws on the border? Congress. Congress can do it, not the vice president, not the president, Congress. And Congress was being pressured by VP Harris and Joe Biden to come up with a border bill to fix the problems. And it took them way too long, but they finally came up with a bill. And it was a Republican and a Democrat and an independent, and they wrote the bill in the Senate, and everybody in the Senate said, this is great, we agree to it. They even said, people like Lindsey Graham said
to those who think that if President Trump wins, which I hope he does, that we can get a better deal. You won't. To get this kind of border security without granting a pathway to citizenship is really unheard of. So if you think you're going to get a better deal next time, in 25, if President Trump's president, Democrats will be expecting a pathway to citizenship for that, in my view. So to my Republican colleagues, this is a historic moment to reform the border in a way that would give tools to the next president they don't have today and lessen the flow to take pressure off people in Texas and Arizona.
And then they sent it to the House to vote. And Donald Trump called Mike Johnson and said, I want to run on this so that people like Dave Portnoy will stay upset about the border. I don't want to fix it before the election because then I don't have anything to run on. And so they didn't do it. They didn't put in a bill. We're sitting here right now. Our Congress is sitting with their thumbs in their assholes because Donald Trump told them to. And now we don't have a border bill. And you're going to blame Joe Biden for that. Because why, Dave? You don't do homework.
Both sides be like, yeah, we need a change from Biden. Probably why the Democrats whacked Biden and installed Kamala Harris as the candidate.
Yeah, that's also not what happened. We all recognize that Joe Biden was too old and he was probably going to lose the election. And so after a lot of pressure, we convinced him to step down. He endorsed Kamala. Anybody else could have entered the race. In fact, there were two people in the race already, Dean Phillips and my good friend Marianne Williamson. And Democrats were like, nah, pass, double pass. That's a double pass. Anybody else want to get in the race? Nobody else wants to get in the race? Okay, we're going with Kamala. And then Kamala became our nominee, and she did it by calling the delegates. The delegates pledged to her. She's our nominee. That's how it happened. By the way, I noticed that you don't have a problem with Donald Trump not showing up for a single debate in the Republican primary. Everybody else showed up for a debate, and Donald Trump sat back and wouldn't debate. You want to talk about being installed? How does a person skip every single debate and win the nomination? Because they were installed, right? You want to talk about installed? You're not going to talk about Donald Trump being installed?
So she's like, we need change. We need this. We need that. But at the same time, when she's on her media tour last week, friendly interviews, Alex Cooper, call her daddy. Hey, Alex.
I like Barstool Sports. I think it's a fun little place. I'm sorry you lost Call Her Daddy. You might have had the Kamala Harris interview, but Alex said, you know what I don't need, Dave? You. And then she grew. And she's the #1 podcast in the world because she didn't need a man making money off of her while she grew. She did it on her own. She just got the fuck out of here, and there she is. #1. I checked the charts. #1. I looked for your podcast. I didn't see you anywhere near the top, Dave.
And she's being asked the most simplest questions, softballs, that she probably knew were coming.
When was the last time a Republican asked Donald Trump, hey, did you lose that election in 2020? You want to talk about softball? They won't even ask him if he lost, because if they do, they know the answer. Let me show you some softball questions that Donald Trump's gotten. But again, Dave, you don't care about that.
You have to be very, very excited about what you accomplished, and you accomplished it.
You have accomplished so much.
You were very strong at the end of that press conference.
There's no Russia with me. There's no nothing.
Fake news.
Fake news.
They're never going to be fair to you.
When did you tell him? But I'll tell you.
Before dessert?
But I will tell you. Only because you've treated me so good for so long. Nobody reports better than you on that. We have the greatest.
How would you describe your political philosophy?
Well, I'm not really an ideologue.
Who is your tax plan intended to help?
Really, the working people.
Do you think the polls are inaccurate purposely?
Are you moving so quickly that your communications department cannot keep up with
Yes.
you?
For every regulation we enact, I will cut 2.
Right.
But you didn't cut 2.
That's right.
You're cutting a much bigger number.
22.
How do you handle all of that?
Well, it's part of my life.
What do you love about being president?
I think you love going back to the campaign rallies.
I do like it.
You seem to be enjoying yourself.
You seem to be really enjoying it.
You love this. You really love this.
You have such energy for this.
You came into this job fighting like hell.
Is it your intention to keep every promise?
Well, I'm going to keep as many as I can.
Everything is advertised as you ran for president.
How would you grade yourself now?
I would give myself an A+.
Who's your favorite? Mitch McConnell, Chuck Grassley, or Lindsey Graham?
What a beautiful helicopter.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Got a nice place.
It's a good place.
The country owes you a great debt on so much.
You're a workaholic.
Well, I like working.
How are you going to celebrate Father's Day?
Work.
What are you up to?
Just working.
You ever sit in the Oval Office at the Resolute desk and say, you know what, if I was over there, I would have a cheeseburger right about
Well,
now.
I don't really.
Kanye West is coming to the White House. How does this work? Does he tell you what he wants for lunch? Do you pick what he's going to get for lunch?
When a question is shouted at you, you almost always respond.
Hey, Kamala.
Yeah, it's Kamala, like a comma, and then la, not Kamala. But do your own research, guy. Can't even get her name right.
How are you different from Joe Biden? What will be different since you are the sitting vice president of the United States now and you're out saying you're the candidate for change? She cannot answer it. She can't answer it. She literally is saying, well, I've pretty much been in every big decision. I'm the same as Joe Biden. I agree with him on everything. Or she just rumbles and stumbles like, well, I grew up and I worked at McDonald's. And you know how I'm going to be different? My name is not Donald Trump.
Yeah, Dave, you exist largely on the internet. You have a website, Barstool Sports. She has a website, KamalaHarris.com. And if you go to it, you'll see these drop downs here. That's her agenda. And you could read through each one of those. If you did read through them, you would have noticed, hey, some of these things aren't happening right now. That's where she's different than Joe Biden. And like 10 minutes of homework would have let you know that she does have a plan. And her plan isn't just, I'm not Joe Biden, I'm not Donald Trump. It's a real plan. Side note, do you know any of Donald Trump's plans? Because I doubt it.
What are we talking about? This is the candidate that people are saying such a great leader and change. No, stop gaslighting us. There's two types of votes right now in this country. You're either voting for Donald Trump, I am. And by the way, I don't ever really love like celebrity endorsements, whatever. Do your research, make your own mind. But there's two types of votes. You're voting for Donald Trump or you're voting against him because you hate his guts and you'd vote for a potato or a head of lettuce or anything. That's my dad.
Yeah, I would vote for a potato or a head of lettuce over a fascist 100% of the time. Yeah, I guess you got me there.
But Kamala Harris can't even answer the easiest questions of all time. She never gives a straight answer. She doesn't seem to be able to put coherent thoughts together. It's actually scary for me to think about like what she'd be on the international stage.
Oh, coherency? You've got issues with coherency on the international stage? Here's a clip of Donald Trump being laughed at on the international stage.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true.
Here's a clip of Donald Trump being completely incoherent.
I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too, a lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted? If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question.
She is the worst presidential candidate in the history of American politics, honestly. Now, if you still want to vote for her because you hate Trump that much and you can't stand him, you think he's all this evil shit, do it. But stop the gaslighting, please. The footage is there. She can't answer simple questions. If you have any issues with the last 4 years, that's her. And she, even though she's saying she's the change candidate, She literally then will go on interviews and be like, oh, same thing. I can't think of one thing different. It's like I'm taking crazy pills.
Yeah, there's a reason for that, Dave. And I'll do it as simply as possible. She's a woman and she was black. And she dropped out even though she had like relatively good support, but it was clear to her that she wasn't going to win. And so she endorsed Joe Biden because our party believed in coalescing behind the person who was going to beat Donald Trump. And unfortunately, your entire party would never vote for a woman for president, or specifically a black woman for president. Our party, we were a little worried that there were still some people who wouldn't vote for a black woman. And so we chose Joe Biden, and it was a mistake. Frankly, it absolutely was a mistake. We shouldn't have chosen Joe Biden. He was too old, he was too moderate, and we didn't really like it. We frankly, as much as I'll say he did a pretty good job as president, I think that we could have had somebody better. But that's actually what happened. And again, you would know that if you did your research, but what you're doing is parroting something that you've been told. You don't know that. You didn't know that she dropped out before the Iowa caucus. You don't know how much money she had on hand. You don't even know what her polling numbers were. You've just been told something, Dave, that you're parroting now. And by the way, Dave, I really hope this gets big. I really hope somehow my video expands its normal reach and it gets to you. And I hope, Dave, that you'd be willing to have a conversation with somebody who once thought just like you. I'm just another white dude who used to be a conservative till I started doing my own research. And I'd just say, Dave, let's have a talk about it.